This week we're turning things up to 11 as we chat to Mick Gordon, the man behind those incredible soundtracks for Doom and Wolfenstein The New Order, now working on the music for Prey. And if that's not enough, Amy drops by to tell us what she thought of Horizon Zero Dawn. This is Player Attack. Hi, I'm Jessica Citizen, and this week let's start off with some numbers. First up, the one that surprised everybody. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is not the best-selling game in Australia, New Zealand, or the UK. Sales figures for the US are still pending, but in at least a few parts of the world, Nintendo's newest flagship title has been soundly beaten in the charts by another bow-wielding hero. Horizon Zero Dawn is not only the biggest launch title for PS4, trumping Uncharted 4 to the record, but it's also officially the best performing new IP launch for the console, surprising absolutely nobody. Aloy and those mechanical dinosaurs have officially beaten Zelda to the top by a comfortable margin, and stay tuned to Player Attack to find out what we thought about the game. But don't get me wrong, Nintendo has not had a bad run of things at all. The Switch has seen the biggest debut sales figures in Nintendo history, bumping the original Wii from the top spot. A longer running record has also been shattered. Super Mario for Nintendo 64 used to be the company's best-selling standalone launch title, ignoring Wii Sports, which was sold as a bundle with the new hardware. Now though, that honour goes to Breath of the Wild, again by a comfortable margin. But it's not all sunshine and roses for Nintendo fans. While so many elements of the Switch console have leapt into the future, there is one part that has remained firmly stuck in the past. In an odd backward step from both the Wii U and 3DS system of file management, you cannot back up or copy your save game files. As you play, your data is written to the system's internal storage, and there's only 32 gig of that, with nearly a quarter taken up by the operating system. If you lose your Switch, you lose your games. If the internal storage gets full, you will need to delete older files to make room for newer ones. Moving on to quick news, the Steam user review system has had a serious overhaul, which should provide the end user with a more accurate idea of the game they're looking at. The review score shown at the top of store pages and in search results will no longer include reviews by users who received the game for free. That means if you got the game as a gift or during a free weekend, you can still share your thoughts, but your sentiments will not affect the game's overall review score. And sticking with Steam, the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission has filed a cross-appeal in its court case against Valve. Last year, the Australian Federal Court found that Steam subscriber agreements and refund policies were false or misleading about consumer rights. This breach of Australian consumer law was set to cost Valve $3 million in penalties until the publisher appealed the decision. Now, the consumer watchdog has appealed the appeal, explaining that all goods should be of acceptable quality and that a business should not be able to make misleading claims in the hope of deterring the consumer from claiming a remedy. More Mass Effect Andromeda news, with BioWare's space opera edging ever closer. Firstly, we were treated to the game's official launch trailer, and it is everything as beautiful as you'd like it to be.
The entire initiative is at risk. None of the Golden Worlds panned out. They're a bust. We need to find more resources, but that takes people, and we can't wake them up. Now more than ever, we need a Pathfinder.
And there's some good news for multiplayer fans. Even though we're still not getting that tech test we'd been promised, BioWare has confirmed that the game's multiplayer maps will all be available free of charge as they are added to the game, just like they were for Mass Effect 3. Now, if the very announcement of Middle-earth Shadow of War wasn't enough to get your blood pumping, Monolith Productions has hinted pretty heavily that you might be able to transfer your character from your Shadow of Mordor save files. The official word from Monolith Creative Vice President Michael DePlata is, "We're not saying anything at this time," which, here's our first look at some gameplay. And another new trailer this week comes to us from Bethesda, who has given us a look at Quake Champions. The studio has confirmed that the new version of the old school arena shooter will be free to play, but there will also be a paid for option for those who like throwing money at things. The free version of the game will give you access to one character, Ranger, As you play, you will earn in-game currency, which you can spend to play as other champions for a limited amount of time. Bethesda doesn't like the word rent, but that's kind of what you're doing. If you want full access to all of the game's characters forever, you will need to pick up the Champion Pack. Everybody will share the same maps and compete in the same brackets. It's basically a way for Bethesda to get the game onto as many screens as possible, with creative director Tim Willits acknowledging that some people just want to play Quake, while others might like access to all of the champions from the get-go. And finally this week, yet another study has shown that playing violent video games does not make players more aggressive. Academics at Hanover Medical School believe that previous studies into the topic may have been inaccurate because they looked at a person's psychological state during or immediately after playing a violent game. This new survey waited at least 3 hours as a way of assessing longer-term effects. The study involved brain scans and psychological questionnaires and tested both levels of aggression and capacity for empathy. Unsurprisingly, there was no significant difference between those who play for hours each day and those people who never play violent games. Interestingly though, Hanover Medical School was inspired to carry out the survey following a sharp rise in the number of patients seeking clinical help for video game addiction. For more information on any of these stories, or to keep up to date with the latest gaming news, head to playerattack.com. But for now, stick around, we've got plenty more still to come.